Hey guys, Kate here. I'm testing this Ferris Wheel Press ink today. It's called the Twilight Symphony. It's their very first water-resistant fountain pen ink. This packaging is just so adorable. Look at those little piggies flying around. It comes in this adorable 20 milliliter bottle. And the color is called indigo, and it has some blue shimmer in it. To me, indigo is dark blue. This color is kind of purple to me, which is fine with me because I've been into purples lately. I'm testing 4 different things here. Lifting, layering the same color over, layering with a different not water resistant ink, and using Caran d'Ache Nail Color 2 and Posca pen on top of it. I'm making 4 different ink blobs that I can use for my experiments. I really like this ink, or ink in general. I really got into ink last year. I think it was spring. I've been using it a lot for my underpaintings and just experiments in general. It's a very fun media to play with. I think my favorite part of using inks is creating cauliflower effect. Cauliflower effect, also known as blooms, is kind of like a textured crown-like pattern that is formed when you add extra water to already drying paint or when paint is still kind of wet. You can see this effect on the first blob that I made. It's a really cool looking thing to make. I'm starting with my first test. I'm trying to lift the ink that I laid down and it's already dry. I dip my brush into water and then I kind of wipe it off so it's not too wet. And I'm trying to kind of grab that ink with my brush. So far it's not working that well. What I see is the paper is starting to show because I'm kind of aggressive. This is a mixed media paper, but the paper itself is kind of thin, so that's why it's breaking up. Ink is usually kind of hard to lift in general. It's not like watercolor. It goes into the fibers of the paper and it's very hard to fix mistakes or create different other effects. The second test is layering the same color to see if the bottom layer lifts with this wet layer. So far the bottom layer is still staying strong. I'm still seeing the lines on the bottom here. And that is good news because that means it's water resistant. Third test, I'm layering a different ink on top. This ink is not water resistant. I'm trying to see if it runs or mixes with the bottom layer. I'm even going to the edges to see if it drags this purple ink with the yellow that I'm using. So far it's not budging at all. This yellow ink is called Sparkling Champagne, in case you're wondering. This test is a success. I really like that it's not dragging the color with the yellow. I think I got carried away here and I'm adding a lot of patterns all over this blob. What can I say? Playing with ink is very relaxing. I'm also trying to drag that bottom layer with the brush and still no luck. My fourth test is using these Nail Color 2 crayons on top I want to see how bright they are. I use them a lot when I use inks, and it's very important to me if they stay bright and visible. I'm going in with some water and trying to activate the pigment to see if it stays and doesn't activate the bottom layer. And so far so good. The Caran d'Ache color stays nice and put on top, and it doesn't bother anything on the bottom. I'm moving on with my Posca pen, another tool I use a lot over inks. I'm checking if the tip is kind of dirty with the ink, but it's not. So that means the ink is staying and it's not moving anywhere. I'm even trying to add the pen to the edges to see if the purple will drag with it. I'm going back in with Neocolor and I'm trying to make these stars or flowers, whatever they are, to look brighter. And it looks like it's working. I'm adding another layer of Posca pen, and as you can see, it's getting very poppy. Is there such a word? These flowers are getting very bright and they pop. That's exactly what I was looking for in my test. I decided to make another test page. I'm using a different ink. This ink is not water resistant. It's still by Ferris Wheel Press, and it's called Eightfold Fortune. It's a very bright red with a little bit of sparkle in it. I'm starting with the first test and I'm trying to lift the ink, and you can see how easy it is to lift this ink compared to the one I did in the first place. I'm adding another layer to see if it absorbs, and you can see it's just blending in. I'm using the first ink that is water resistant on top of non-water resistant ink. Let's see what happens. You can clearly see that I'm dragging the bottom layer and it's getting mixed. I'm using the same crayon and the same Posca pen on top of this ink, and you can see how it's dissolving because it's not water resistant. Nothing works. Even second layer didn't do the trick. So there we have it. Lifting test, pass. Layering, pass. Layering with not water resistant ink, pass. And layering with other media, also pass. Now let's take these inks to another level and paint some florals. I'm using the same inks I used in my previous tests, so you can see them in action. I have no plan whatsoever. I'm just painting as I go, and I'm just imagining things and trying to create something pretty. I'm adding red into the blue or purple to see how they react and mix on the paper. I'm using dagger striper brush here. It has a very unique angle shape that taper to a fine point or dagger blade. I usually use this brush to make leaves, florals, and different long flowing lines. You can change the stroke thickness just by changing its angle and pressure. I really like how I created this dry brush effect here. You can do so much with this brush. You can twist it and turn it. I got this brush recently and I'm still exploring how to create different variety of things. I think my favorite is making leaves. But then you can turn these leaves into petals or flowers or even buds, like I'm doing here. This brush has a very fine point. You can use it to even make very, very thin lines. Adding more leaves on the side. This is sparkling champagne mixed with the purple. I really like how this looks. I'm even seeing some kind of granulation in there. I'm adding more leaves to the spaces I have left. I really want to make a separate video of comparing watercolor paint and inks. I think it would be a very nice and cool experiment. And I want to make another video of mixing ink with watercolor. Ink in general acts kind of like watercolor, except you cannot lift the ink how I showed you earlier, even if this ink is not water resistant. Once it goes into the paper, that's it, it's staying in. I'm creating a little path for this ink I'm dropping in so it flows into the stem. Adding more leaves because there's never enough leaves. I decided to add more color to this top flower that I made. It looked a bit too pale to me. The ink is still kind of wet, so I can easily add a little extra. You can see some blooms happening in places. And I just love the textures it makes. I'm dragging another petal for this flower here, because why not? I always dry my ink with a heat gun. I just have no patience whatsoever. And you can kind of control how it dries by pointing the heat gun at different angles. I want to add more petals, but with more diluted ink, so you can kind of see through it. This ink is very pigmented, so I had to add a lot of water to make it this runny. I'm going for a loose flower effect, but I want some of these petals to look more sharp. I think that adds some interest to the image. You can see how I'm dragging this red color with me, but the layer of purple or blue underneath is not even moving. I'm really impressed with this. I really hope Ferris Wheel Press will make more water-resistant inks, because I always add different media on top of the inks and I really want it to stay in place. I'm adding more petals. This red is running in again and it's making a very cool effect that I like. This color combination is surprisingly good. I decided to add another petal here. I'm using very diluted ink again. I want it to look transparent and kind of loose. I'm adding another petal because I need to balance this flower out. Dragging the bottom out so I can shape it a little better. I'm going in with sparkling champagne and I'm adding another leaf that's kind of overlapping this one. My ink is very diluted and transparent. I'm adding another one on the other side, and I decided not to close it in the middle, so I have some kind of variation. Balancing the bottom corner with another red leaf. I decided to add another yellow petal to this one to make it very crazy and colorful. We have another drying session, and now it's time for some Posca pans. I'm using gold color here, and I'm adding different dots and patterns to different spots. I really like how gold looks on top of the red, so I'm going into all the red spots and I'm adding these weird looking shapes. I'm adding some veins to different leaves now. This Posca pan is not working that well for some reason. I'm adding some tiny veins here and there. I'm going in with some purple and I'm adding more of these little dots or ovals, more lines and veins. I think using Posca pens on top of inks is so far my favorite. My second favorite would be Neocolor 2 and watercolor pencils. They really add a lot of texture to your illustrations, and Posca pens make things pop. I'm in love with this golden pen. As you can see, I'm going bananas and I'm adding it everywhere. I really had to stop myself so I didn't overdo it. I'm trying to see if I can see this red, but it didn't work. I had to shake it up a little more, and now it looks much better. I'm adding more veins to make it more interesting. You can't really see this red on top of red. It kind of blends in, but it leaves a little hint that it's there. I decided to add some red dots here and there. I think that looks a little better. I decided to cover that gold that I put earlier, and I'm going in with the purple, and it definitely looks much better than what I had before. I'm pretty much done with this illustration. I'm going over and adding details. I really enjoyed doing this little experiment here. If you want to create similar illustration, you can always use watercolor if you don't have ink. You can pretty much get the same results, except the parts where I used this water resistant ink and it stayed in place. It would be really hard to do with watercolor because when you add more paint over, you will activate that paint under and it will mix together. It can be done if you are very, very careful. I'm pretty much done here. I'm just going over each detail and I'm trying to finalize everything I see here. I'm adding a second layer of this golden color so it kind of stands out more. I also decided to add some dots here and there on the background of the paper. I really hope you got inspired to paint something similar. If you do, please share that in the comment section or on Instagram. I would really love to see your creations. I will talk to you next time. Bye!